Hello, everyone, and welcome to What Would Dorcy Do Friday. I apologize for the delay. We had some technical difficulties, and I was having some challenges getting on using StreamYard, which is what I normally use. So I apologize for the delay, but I'm here now. So welcome to What Would Dorcy Do Friday. I'm really excited to have everybody here. I'm excited to be here. Today, I'm going to talk about therapists. So oftentimes we get questions or people calling us or sending us messages asking for a referral for a therapist. And we don't make therapist recommendations. And oftentimes people come to us because they're really frustrated with the fact that they haven't had a competent therapist working with their family surrounding the family court system. And oftentimes there are more than one therapist, or your family, everybody has their own therapist, then the kids have a therapist, and maybe there's a family systems therapist, maybe there's a reunification therapist that's been ordered to reunite you with your children, and you're dealing with therapy or therapists surrounding the family court system. And unfortunately, you probably have all experienced that a lot of the therapists surrounding family court are not resolving the family dynamic. So you're not getting reunification. Maybe you are experiencing working with a reunification therapist who's only seeing your children. Maybe they're only seeing you. Maybe they're seeing you guys together and they're allowing your kids to really stay elevated in the family hierarchy. And so I want to talk a little bit about therapists today because this comes up a lot, and people think that we're maybe a nonprofit or a hotline. So they call us thinking we're going to provide those resources. We don't have those resources. Our experience has been the same as yours, which is a lot of the family court mental health providers have no idea what they're doing when it comes to solving this family dynamic. And so I want to talk a little bit today on what I would do differently with regards to securing a family therapist with solving this family dynamic. And one of the things that parents struggle with is going to the therapist and telling them about maybe Dr. Childress's work or providing them Dr. Childress's book. And you get excited because you found us or you found Dr. Childress and you want to tell the therapist, look, I found this great resource. But most therapists don't want to be told what to do. And a lot of therapists don't want to admit that they haven't been doing it right. And so they anchor in, right, into what they're doing wrong and not solving the issue. The other thing I see families do is they buy into this delusion that there's a thing called reunification therapy when there really isn't. That's not a form of therapy. It's not an accepted form of therapy, and there's certainly been no inter-rater reliability tests or anything in the therapeutic models that create a process that everybody can follow. And so when the court orders reunification therapy or conjoint therapy, that they call it that a lot in California, families go round and round and round and round through the system and through this process that doesn't resolve the family dynamic. There's no solution in the current therapeutic models surrounding family court. So one of the things that we tell people is, one, if you do the same thing over and over again, you're going to get the same result. So if you've already seen multiple mental health providers, or you have multiple mental health providers involved in your family, and it's been going on for 6 months and no solution, then it's time to do something different. And one, and then the other thing is, when you're looking for a therapeutic model to really help your family, family systems therapy is a is a real model or a real form of therapy that focuses on the entire family system. So if you're working with a therapist and they're only working with your child or your children, or they're only working with you, then that's individual therapy. Individual therapy is not going to resolve your family dynamic. Individual therapy is not going to repair a breach in a parent-child relationship. Okay, so if you're experiencing a breach in the parent-child relationship, then you need a family systems therapist. Now, that might not be enough. You might also need additional therapy for the parent that's actually causing the problem in the family, right? You could be dealing with a pathogenic co-parent who's actually creating the split in the family dynamic. I mean, if you're here, that's generally what we're experiencing is families that have a pathogenic parent and children that are experiencing an emotional cutoff with a normal range parent. So assessment leads to diagnosis, leads to treatment. Okay, so if you're going to take the therapeutic model, then you need to have an assessment with a competent mental health provider that assesses the entire family system. Okay, an assessment isn't for one person. When you're experiencing an emotional cutoff, then you need a family systems therapist that does a family systems assessment. Okay, you need to assess what's going on. It's like going to the doctor when you have a headache. You don't go to the doctor with a headache and they say, oh my gosh, you must have a tumor in your brain. Let's cut your head open and take a look. And they say, oh, whoops, never mind. They're going to assess the situation to figure out what's going on. Maybe you have migraines, right? Maybe you do have a tumor, and they have to do the right assessments to determine what is actually happening. Mental health is the same. So assessment leads to diagnosis, which leads to your treatment plan. Okay, that's the process. Now, people call us asking for a list of therapists in their area, for a therapist that's trained to do assessments. We don't know any. We know Dr. Childress, and he's only licensed in California, and he doesn't live in California, so he's not really practicing, and he can't really do an assessment on your family in the state that you live in. Okay, so we don't know people who are properly assessing, diagnosing and treating. We just don't. They're not doing it. The reason I started my company, the reason I started the Conscious Co-Parenting Institute was for this very reason, because the mental health providers surrounding family court, they weren't doing their job. They weren't properly assessing what was happening and then diagnosing anything and treating. It was the therapist just simply start seeing your family. So if you're vetting mental health providers and their idea of treatment or solution or assessment is to just meet with your child and get to know your child, you're paying for a very expensive friend for your child and probably ally for the pathogenic parent who is much more manipulative than you are. So many of you, and I know because I talk to you and my team talks to you, and we've been doing this a long time, the pathogenic parent is really good at manipulating everybody in the situation. So they're really good at manipulating mental health providers. And so if the mental health provider is not assessing, diagnosing, and putting forth a treatment plan, then don't see them, because that person doesn't know what they're doing. Okay, they don't know what they're doing. So if you think they know what they're doing by not assessing and diagnosing, then you're not going to get the results that you're looking for. You're not going to be able to recover your children working with mental health providers that just simply treat. What are they treating? What are they treating when they just simply are getting to know you or getting to know your children? You don't need people to get to know you. You need an assessment, a diagnosis, and a treatment plan. Again, we're not getting that. We do business all over the world. We work in all different countries. We work in all the 50 states, and we've yet to really meet. We've met a couple mental health providers that are actually assessing, diagnosing, and treating the family properly. A lot of the mental health providers that we work with, we're starting to get them up to speed on properly treating your family, but it's usually after the high road. And we have a few mental health providers that are working with us in learning how to assess, working with Dr. Childress, I should say, and learning how to properly assess and diagnose the family problem and then properly treat. One of the things that we do, and what I would do, which is what we do differently, is we review data. So one of the reasons I created the custody resolution method was to be able to look at what's actually happening in your family, to be able to look at the evidence to say, here's what's actually going on. And based on the historical data, based on how you're communicating with your children and how they're communicating with you, how you and your co-parent are communicating or lack thereof, reviewing the family data gives us the opportunity to really see what's happening in your family, and more importantly, what to do about it. And so it's the reason that we created this process, or I created this process, was because of the gross negligence, if you will, or lack of understanding on properly assessing, diagnosing, and treating the family through the mental health. I was on a consult with Dr. Childress the other day, and he clearly talks about this. There are two paths, right? There's the legal path and the mental health path, and there's a lot of interloping with the two. The mental health path is assessment, diagnosis, treatment plan. The legal path is evidence, judge, child protection, or oftentimes they're making recommendations for reunification or therapy or something along those lines. And it's a fool's errand, because those people surrounding the family court, they're not solving it. They're not actually doing the assessment. So if the judge is ordering mental health, right, if the judge is ordering therapy or reunification therapy, then you go into therapy, and sometimes the therapist is only seeing the children. Sometimes they're only seeing you. They're not seeing you together. They may say they're assessing the situation, but they're never really providing a treatment plan. So an assessment really is 3 to 6 sessions. They can assess what's going on, provide a diagnosis and a treatment plan, and then you can take that to court, but they're not doing that. Okay, so I say that, and at the same time, I know a lot of you are experiencing the fact that they're not actually doing it. You're going to court and it's not happening. You're getting these therapists and they're getting involved, and they're not properly assessing and diagnosing the situation. So your evidence is critical. Being able to lay the facts out in a way that helps the court understand what is happening, right, from your evidence perspective, from the historical data perspective, is an avenue or a path that you're on if you're in the family court system, and explaining what's happening in the family and then what to do about it. One of the other things that we do is coaching, and we coach you, the client, because, or the chosen parent, because you're the leader of your family. You're the parent that the child is choosing to learn the skills to recover your family. And I discovered this really about a decade ago, when I had already gone through this process myself personally, and I was really frustrated with the fact that there was really nobody solving this and nobody helping families properly. And even my own experience was like, what is going on with these people? And I'm very solution focused. I'm really about, like, here's where you are and here's where you need to be. Here are the things that you need to do to get there. And coaching really takes you out of your victim mindset and helps you focus on the things that you can do. You can only change you and how you show up. You can only change your behavior. You can't fix other people. You can't change your children. You can't change your ex. You can't get your co-parent to do the things you want them to do. And many times parents call us like, how do I get them to do that? And you get people to shift and change around you when you shift and change how you show up. That's the only way to get that to happen. So the reason that I created the processes that I've created that work is because the person motivated right, to recover the family is you. The person motivated to learn the skills is you. The person with the most power is actually you, even though you may feel powerless right now. And the reason I know this is true is we've helped thousands of families all over the world. And when you implement, when you do the work yourself, you actually create the change that you're looking for. You actually shift how you're showing up, and you'll shift how your children are showing up. So I wanted to talk today about therapy because we keep getting a lot of calls. We get a lot of emails. People contact us expecting us to give them information that we just don't have, because those people really just don't exist right now. They're not doing what they're supposed to be doing. And the forensic psychologists surrounding family court have failed your families. They have. They've failed your families. I've looked at thousands of different custody evaluations, and they're garbage. I've yet to read a custody evaluation that's good. Even custody evaluators who call out alienation, that is also subpar, because mental health providers should not be using the terminology parental alienation because it's not an authentic diagnosis. So while we all might know what that is and experience that as parents and even as professionals, the mental health community should not be using that language. It's subpar. When they use that, they actually create an appealable court order if you even get an order in your favor, right? Because it's not a diagnosable pathology. So they should be focusing on diagnosable pathologies and not parental alienation. That's not going to solve it for you. So I've yet again to see an evaluation that is an actual assessment that provides a diagnosis and a treatment plan. Even when they get it right, let's say they understand alienation and they cite it or they talk about it, then you get to the end of the report and there's no treatment. It's like reunification therapy or 50-50 parenting time with no authentic treatment. Okay. They've lulled you guys to sleep. The whole mental health community and family court said they've lulled you to sleep. They've led you into the forest in believing that this reunification therapy is a thing that you can get to recover your kids. And you spend all this time and money, additional time and money, going down a path that becomes fruitless for you. And so I want you to understand that there are forms of therapy that deal with all kinds of different pathology, and there's no such thing as reunification therapy, and there's no such thing as a diagnosable pathology called parental alienation. So if you're going down the therapeutic path, you need to understand that assessment of a real pathology, an emotional cutoff, an attachment pathology, right? Personality disorder fingerprinting in your children pathology, a encapsulated persecutory delusion, that's a pathology, right? Child psychological abuse, that's a diagnosis. Okay. Could be intimate partner or spousal abuse. That's a diagnosis. Okay. These are things that you need to have diagnosed. Treatment is, what's the treatment plan? Is it family systems therapy? Is it a protective order? What is it, a protective separation because there's abuse? What's the treatment plan? That's based on the diagnosis. So if you're going down that path, you need to have somebody who's going to assess, diagnose, and treat. Okay. Or make a treatment needs recommendation to the court. Or if you're out of court in therapy, if they're simply just seeing you, if they're simply just seeing your children to get to know your family, run for the hills. They're not doing a proper assessment. And you have a right to proper mental health. You have a right to proper health care. Mental health, okay, it's called mental health because it's healthcare. All right. So you want to make sure that you're asking for what you deserve and what you're entitled to. You're entitled to competent mental health and healthcare. You're entitled to that. We all are. So when you're speaking to mental health providers, if you're looking for a mental health provider, look for a family systems therapist. If you are dealing with personality disorder pathology, DBT therapy is phenomenal. Good luck finding somebody. They're few and far between. People that deal with schema therapy or I just drew a blank. Emotional therapists. Those are all people that kind of have the skills. DBT is probably the strongest skill set with regards to dealing with pathology, okay, with personality disorder pathology. But if you're looking for reunification, family systems therapy is what you need. But don't be fooled into thinking that the family systems therapist actually knows what's going on, because they're away from family court. Okay, they have no idea what's going on in the family court system, and so they too are disconnected. That could be a good thing or a bad thing depending on their skill level. So we don't know. So when you call us, our answer is going to be, we don't know. We don't know that path because we've yet to find competent mental health providers all around the world that are able to properly assess, diagnose, and treat your family. We just don't know any. If you know some, please let us know, because we would love to have those referrals, but we just don't have any. We, like I said, we have a couple in some small areas that we work with, but we're not going to be able to make a recommendation. We don't do that. We take a different approach because we want to solve it. So we look at where you are right now, where you want to be, and what you need to do to get there. We work with you as the chosen parent in teaching you the skills and tools that you need to know in order to recover your own family. A lot of our clients have been able to recover their family without the therapist involvement, without needing a reunification therapist, which, remember, isn't a real therapist. That's not a real therapy, being assigned. A lot of times our clients are able to go to the conjoin or reunification or whatever label they're calling themselves, therapist, with the skills that we're teaching them in showing up differently to recover their children in therapy, not relying on the therapist to do the traditional therapy that they've been doing that is ineffective. So if you're in therapy and it's not working, then I highly recommend doing something different. So what would I do? I would do something different, and I would stop therapy that's no longer or is not or never has worked for my family. And I would look for something different. And I would look for ways that me as the parent, the chosen parent, could show up differently and do things differently for my family, instead of relying on the mental health providers that aren't resolving the pathology in your family. This doesn't take a long period of time to recover. Okay. Dr. Childress talks about in therapy, if he were treating the family in family systems therapy, it's 6 to 9 months, and he would want a 12-month protective separation. With us, with what we do, it's much shorter. If you end up doing our 4-day intensive, which is the 4-day high road to reunification workshop, we recover the kids in a couple of days. In 4 days, we teach the skills. We require a 90-day no contact minimum, giving you and the children enough time to master the skills learned. The goal is not elimination. The goal is always integration. Children love both parents. They want to be in relationship with both parents, even if one and sometimes both parents are abusive. Parents do things and don't realize how it's harming their children. So we teach children how to be in relationship with both parents, but that does require a court order. If you are able to see your children and you have your children, it would behoove you to learn the skills to stabilize your children on your parenting time, so that things don't escalate to a place where you are having to need a high road. The goal is to prevent having to have a high road. So that's what I would do with regards to therapy. I would look for an alternative method. I would not do reunification therapy. There is no such thing. If you are working with a therapist, I would ask for your assessment, diagnosis, and treatment protocol. Ask, how long is it going to take? How do they know when it's working? And how do they know when it's not working? And what are they going to do differently if it doesn't work? And have treatment goals in mind. You have to have a treatment plan. You have to have the goals in mind. What is it? The last thing I want to say here is it's not a good idea to run into the therapist's office and say, hey, I've got this book from Dr. Childress. I want you to read it. They don't like that. You need to be able to move into the therapy that you're in a way that isn't confrontational, and the therapist isn't going to see what you're saying as telling them how to do their job. They don't want to be told how to do their job. All right. That is what I have to share with you today on therapy, on What Would Dorcy Do Friday. I hope you guys have an awesome weekend. I apologize for missing the last couple of Fridays. My kids were in town. So I had two daughters. They had spring breaks the opposite week. So I have my kids. So I apologize for missing you the last couple of weeks, but I'm glad to be back. We'll see you next Friday. Hope you guys have a great weekend. Go out and do something fun. Don't forget self-care. Don't forget to take care of yourself. Do something nice. Be around people who treat you well. Peace in so you can have peace out. Have a great weekend, everyone. Bye.